1, 2, 3, come on!
Hi, good day my dear learners, and once again, welcome to Math TV Lessons channel. I'm Giovanni Conde and I am your teacher in math. Today, I will teach you on how to multiply fractions and whole numbers. So are you excited to learn? So let's go, let's learn together. Our topic today is multiplying fractions and whole numbers. A thorough understanding of fractions and its mathematical operations is essential in our daily life activities. Having proficiency with fractions is an important foundation to advance your mathematical skills. One of these is mastering the skills in multiplying fractions with whole numbers and other fractions. It is the simplest operation among other operations in fractions. In this lesson, you will learn the fundamental skills in multiplying fractions. If you mastered multiplication of whole numbers, then it's easy for you. So let's have problem number 1. There are 2/5 kilograms of salt in the kitchen. Mrs. Cruz used 1/8 kilogram of salt when she was preparing breakfast. How much salt did she use? So let's answer the questions. How many kilograms of salt Mrs. Cruz have in her kitchen? Okay, so Mrs. Cruz has 2/5 kilograms of salt. How many kilograms of salt did she use to prepare their breakfast? Mrs. Cruz used 1/8 kilograms of salt. What will you do to find the answer? Okay, so you have to multiply. To find the answer, we multiply 2/5 and 1/8. So we're going to follow the steps in multiplying fractions to get the answer. Step number 1. Multiply the numerators. So what are the numerators? The numerators are 2 and 1. So you are going to multiply 2 times 1 equals 2. Step number 2. Multiply the denominators. So what are the denominators? We have 5 and 8. So 5 times 8 is 40. Step number 3. Express your answer to its lowest term if possible. So your answer is 2 over 40. Can we still simplify it? Yes. We can still divide 2 and 40 by 2. Because 2 is the LCM of 2 and 40. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 40 divided by 2 is 20. So your answer is 1 over 20. So Mrs. Cruz uses 1 over 20 kilograms of salt for their breakfast. Okay, we are now done with our examples on how to multiply fractions with fractions and fractions with whole numbers. So again, let's have to recall the steps in multiplying fractions. Step number 1 is multiply the numerators. Step number 2, multiply the denominators. Step number 3, express your answer to lowest term if possible. Here are the steps in multiplying fractions with whole number. Step number 1, multiply the numerator with whole number. Step number 2, divide the answer by the denominator. Number 3, express the answer to lowest term if possible. Are you now familiar with the different steps in multiplying fractions with fractions or whole number? So if your answer is yes, so I want you to answer the following multiplication of fractions. So while you're answering, I want to play a song about multiplication of fractions. You take your time and I will be back.
If you ever multiply by a fraction, the number gets smaller, that's no exaggeration. So just think when you try and have a go that you're asking, what's a small part of the whole? So multiply the numbers on the top side together. Whatever the solution, it becomes the numerator. Now multiply the numbers on the bottom side together, and the answer that we get is now the new denominator. If you ever multiply by a fraction, the number gets smaller, that's no exaggeration. So just think when you try and have a go that you're asking, what's a small part of the whole? So multiply the numbers on the top side together. Whatever the solution, it becomes the numerator. Now multiply the numbers on the bottom side together, and the answer that we get is now the new denominator. So let's take a simple one to start with. Here is 1/3 multiplied by 1/5. Now if you think about the question we're asking, it's like saying, what's the third part of this fifth? So we could try and cut it into 3 bits, cause it's only gonna be a small part of the fifth. But there's a better way, let me remind you what it is. Remembering the chorus is the trick to solving this. So multiply the numbers on the top side together. Whatever the solution, it becomes the numerator. And now we know the task that needs to be done. We got 1 times 1, which is equal to 1. Now multiply the numbers on the bottom side together. The answer that we get is now the new denominator. So 3 times 5 has become 15, which means the final answer must be a 15th. If you ever multiply by a fraction, the number gets smaller, that's no exaggeration. So just think when you try and have a go that you're asking, what's a small part of the whole? So multiply the numbers on the top side together. Whatever the solution, it becomes the numerator. Now multiply the numbers on the bottom side together, and the answer that we get is now the new denominator. Now for whole numbers with a fraction as well, let's try a third multiplied by a 12. And if you think you need another way to delve, it's like saying what's a third part of the 12? So we could cut it up and see the answers ourselves. Plus we know the answer's got to be smaller than 12. It ain't hard to tell, but there's a trick to remember. If you ever need a fraction, put a 1 under the number now. Multiply the numbers on the top side together. Whatever the solution, it becomes a numerator. And now I know that you can cater for yourself. If it's 1 times 12, it's equal to 12. Now multiply the numbers on the bottom side together. The answer that we get is now the new denominator. So 3 times 1 becomes 3 before. We have 12 over 3 for an answer of 4. If you ever multiply by a fraction, the number gets smaller, that's no exaggeration. So just think when you try and have a go that you're asking, what's a small part of the whole? So multiply the numbers on the top side together. Whatever the solution, it becomes the numerator. Now multiply the numbers on the bottom side together, and the answer that we get is now the new denominator.
Okay, time is up. So let's have number 1. 4 times 2 over 7. So let's have to recall the steps in multiplying fraction and a whole number. Step number 1, multiply the numerator and a whole number. So 2 times 4 is 8 over, copy the denominator of your fraction, which is 7. So your answer is 8 over 7. But look at the answer. It is an improper fraction. So in improper fraction, we have to simplify it. We have to reduce it to lowest term. So we have to divide the numerator by the denominator. So 8 divided by 7 is 1 with a remainder of 1. Your answer here will be your whole number, and your remainder will be the numerator, and copy the denominator. So your answer is 1 and 1 over 7. So let's have number 2. 5/8 times 1/6. So let's have to recall the steps in multiplying fractions. Step number 1, multiply the numerators. So what are the numerators? We have 5 and 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. And also, step number 2, multiply the denominators. What are the denominators? We have 8 and 6. So 8 times 6 is 48. So your answer is 5 over 48. Step number 3, Express the answer to lowest term. Can we express it to lowest term? The answer is no. So your final answer here is 5 over 48. So let's have number 3. 3/5 times 3/4. So we have to multiply the numerators, which are 3 and 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. Step number 2, multiply the denominators. So 5 times 4 equals 20. So your answer is 9 over 20. Can we simplify it? The answer is no. So your final answer is 9 over 20. And the last one is 10 times 4 over 5. So we have to multiply the whole number and the numerator. So 10 times 4 is 40. And copy the denominator of your fraction, so it is 5. So 40 over 5. Is this your final answer? No. So let's proceed to step number 3, which is express the answer to lowest term. So we are going to divide the numerator by the denominator because our answer here is improper fraction. So 40 divided by 5 is 8 without remainder. So your final answer here is 8. Finally, we are now done with our lessons, and I know that you learned something today about multiplying fractions and whole numbers. I hope that this video will help you in your math lessons while doing your task at home. So before we leave and before I say goodbye in this video, I want you to shout it out. I love math, I love myself, I love Math TV Lessons channel. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye!